Hey everyone, I hope you're well. This is the story about what if Naruto became Orochimaru's apprentice. Before we start, please subscribe to the channel and like the video as well. So without any further ado, let's start the what if. We're approaching this from the wrong end, Naruto said as he leaned back in his lab chair and sighed. For 3 weeks, they had been holed up in the lab, trying to crack the secret behind the damnable necrobacteria. Yet no matter what they had tried, the bacteria refused to divulge its weaknesses. It adapted to anything they had tried, often within minutes, and thus far the only thing that seemingly neutralized it was exposure to air. Having failed to combat the bacteria itself, Naruto realized they had to find some other options. He spun around in his chair, meeting the eyes of his coworkers, and looked at them. I think we all can see it, this pathogen refuses to be defeated. We need other options, he told them. Any ideas? He looked around amongst his coworkers and saw that they all were stumped. Yet again, what do we know? He said, rubbing his temple. Necrotoxin, he began with a tired voice, sounding as if he was reading from a list. It reacts on foreign tissue by releasing an enzyme which facilitates a rapid spread of necrosis in the affected area of the body. Multi-resistant and works very much like an antibody in their hosts. We've tried the ideas we could come up with on the first go, it's time to find another way, we're standing still as it is. Dismissed, we'll try to find a new path after the weekend. None of the gathered scientists dared oppose him, they had all learned enough about their superior to see that he was in a foul mood at the moment. This pathogen was obviously artificial, having way too much resilience and lethality to be anything natural, and their superior was not happy over it. Even if none of them dared to say it, they were all thinking the same thing. Was this a legacy of Orochimaru? Was this one of the snake's creations? Either way, they had been told to leave the labs for the weekend, and so they did, vacating the sterile chamber and leaving their superior and his assistant alone. Naruto sighed as he spun around in his chair and pushed the microscope away. He leaned forwards and folded his hands in front of his face. Kabuto glanced at his master, and after a few seconds he decided to speak up. There must be some way we can fight the toxin, he said. If it is Orochimaru's creation, there will be a weakness to it. It has weaknesses, Naruto said, it's only that we can't use them. If this was his creation, it must be one of his finest. Naruto stood up and walked over to the window, staring out towards the setting sun that cast its lights over the village and making it bathe in yellow which reflected in his pale blue eyes. Such is the pride for my hubris. Naruto thought to himself, his hands supporting him at the sides of the window as he leaned towards it. I thought I had figured you out, that I knew what you did. But I don't, I know nothing. It's not even a question about if it is yours, only when you developed it. Knowing you something like this might as well have been one of dozens of things you created. And I knew nothing of it. Naruto's hands clenched against the sides of the window as anger rose in him. I'll reveal it somehow. He swore to himself, no matter what you created, I swear I'll outdo you, you psychotic maniac. Someone who merely seeks to play God will never outdo me. Let's call it a day, Kabuto, he said after a while, not turning back to look at his assistant. He didn't need to, he could more or less sense how Kabuto bowed as he spoke up. As you wish, sensei. With that, Kabuto left the lab and Naruto was left alone in the room. After a few minutes of staring out of the window, he sighed and pulled off his gloves, before he threw them into the nearest bin. Was he staring himself blind at it, or was it simply as hard as he thought? He needed to crack it soon at any rate, as it was he would soon become too swamped to be able to handle things. The labs needed work still. Orochimaru had left a disorganized mess when he died, and as it was he hadn't even checked up on Oto, having been locked up here for too long. He hardly even knew how the place looked. The snakes he had sent north to give reports to the person now running the place, a young girl named Karen, approximately Kabuto's age, who had been in charge of one of the more outlying laboratories. The girl was brilliant though, and Naruto had made her his representative in Oto, where she enforced his rule with fanatic loyalty. Naruto was grateful he had managed to salvage so many of Orochimaru's most loyal and capable workers. Claiming that it was Konoha who had killed Orochimaru had done wonders for ensuring the loyalty of the many twisted, damaged or fanatical people Orochimaru had gathered. Still, There was so much left to do, and as it was, he was stuck in Konoha, working on a seemingly impossible case with resources that were a joke. Karen's reports, furthermore, would have been perfectly suited for a lab report, explaining exactly what it intended to, but nothing more. As it was, they gave Naruto only a tentative grip on Otokagure, the village that was now his. He had hardly any control over the situation he was in right now, and all that was needed was a single uncontrolled event and it would all come crashing down. The massive amounts of prisoners who would be needed to dealt with, several unique genetic conditions amongst the more exotic bloodline and clan Tekuhiki users, power-hungry people who wouldn't want anything more than to usurp his power. He needed to get to Oto, but how? This question kept tormenting him as he left the building and headed home. The world was blooming fiercely around him, summer and all its life having arrived in full force. Grass, flowers, bushes, trees, it was all teeming with vitality, and Naruto idly waved his hand to chase away a small bumblebee that flew near him. He had to drop it. He was staring himself blind, but as soon as he tried to turn his mind away from it, all he could see was Orochimaru's smirking face. He couldn't stand the thought of pulling back. It felt like that would mean that Orochimaru had won, even if only for the moment. Passing one of the tea houses, he felt the smell of tea and dango, and a sudden impulse made Naruto decide to stop. It was just as well to indulge himself in some snacks, perhaps it would work to clear his head. So even Mr. Ice likes dango, huh? Naruto froze in his tracks and a twitch appeared on his forehead in a millisecond, even before Anko's arms had wrapped themselves around him from behind and a grinning face was leaning on his left shoulder. "Took you this long to acknowledge the food of the gods?" The woman grinned. "Poor boy, let me buy you some." Having appeared seemingly out of nowhere, Mitarashi Anko dragged Naruto inside as the young man tried in vain to see a way out of the situation he had suddenly landed in. Had he been that far into his thoughts? He hadn't noticed a thing. The stupidity of the situation was unavoidable, however. He ended up seated beside Anko outside the shop as Anko dropped a giant plate of dango sticks in between him and where she proceeded to sit down, handing him a can of iced coffee. "If you spend 50 ryo on dango, can't you at least buy some actual tea?" Naruto asked as he accepted the iced coffee. As usual, it had gone near instantly and Naruto realized he was trapped in Anko's webs again. Damn woman, yet, what did he have to lose? Nothing. What did he have to win? Hopefully get his mind of that damn germ. "Oh, grow up," Anko said, making another tick appear on Naruto's forehead and making him reassess his view of this whole thing. "You look like shit anyhow," she continued with her mouth full, already having dug in on the dango and stuffed an entire stick's worth into her mouth. "You need the coffee." Naruto decided to not say anything and opened the can without a word, taking a deep swig of the ice-cold coffee. He wouldn't admit it, but the taste was heavenly, refreshed him and cleared his head to a surprising degree. Reaching to the side, he fished up a dango stick and chomped down on it. "So how's the research going?" Anko asked him after a while, her mouth still full. "Standing still as usual, or is it going backwards for once?" "Yes," Naruto deadpanned without missing a beat. His dubious answer made Anko chortle and she nearly spat out a spray of dango before she could cover her mouth. Bending his head forwards, he dodged a slap to the head and took the opportunity to grab another dango stick. "The bacteria is most likely his creation," he said as he rose to an upright position, and Anko stopped, not following up with another slap and instead meeting his gaze with a hard and focused one. "Orochimaru," she said, the word almost hissed like a curse as her eyes got something steely in them. Naruto nodded as he took a sip from the iced coffee. "It seemingly lacks all weaknesses, we can't neutralize it," Naruto said. "Every time I think I've found the solution, it turns out to be a dead end and I can see that bastard smirk in front of me." He grabbed another dango stick. "As it is, we're running out of options, I can't." "Yuki," someone screamed behind them now, interrupting Naruto. Both he and Anko both looked back to see a corpulent and middle-aged woman in an expensive kimono and her hair in an elaborate hairstyle a few benches away, leaning over someone who was currently lying on the ground, seemingly shaking. After a second they both realized it was a small boy, seemingly around 7 years old and as corpulent as the woman standing over him, and he was rapidly turning blue. Holy shit. Anko said, having stood up, and Naruto was already heading towards the lady. What happened? He asked as he knelt by the boy's side. The woman he guessed was his mother seemingly near hysteric. He ate some of the dango and then fell down. The woman cried as she did her best to comfort the child, putting her hands on the boy's chins as he only got more and more blue and blue. Makeup was running down her face as tears were flowing down her cheeks. Naruto swore internally, this wasn't good. The boy had gotten an allergic reaction to something and would soon choke. Looking around, he saw the dango stick the boy was holding in his right hand. It still had one red and one green dango stick on it. Anko, he snapped, the 3 colored dango sticks, what gives the white ones their color? It's eggs, Anko said, hurrying over. Is he allergic? Class 1 hypersensitivity. Naruto nodded, he could see it easily. The boy was suffering from anaphylactic shock. His body had leapt amok when exposed to the substances in the egg, and now the throat had swollen shut, becoming like a red tumor sticking out of his expensive clothes. Naruto was too focused on the situation at hand to notice it, but if he'd have realized that the boy must be of noble birth. His clothes were made in the finest silk, as were the mother's kimono. Furthermore, both of them had very pale skin and the kind of droopy face that was more or less the primary identifying features of the daimyo's family. Yet as it was, his mind was totally switched into examining mode, and his only interest was how to save the kid. He'll choke soon, get me a straw. Anko didn't question him, she only threw herself over the bench and dashed for the tea house, tearing one of the straws from the large, straw-filled mug on the counter. Naruto grabbed hold of the woman and shook her. Calm down, he commanded her. The woman was only aggravating the boy's condition, frightening him. He had to get her to calm down, shove the reality down her throat. Your boy needs you, calm down. The woman, even if her black eyes were wide in fear and shock and her entire body trembled, nodded stiffly, understanding. Anko returned now, handing him the straw, and Naruto took it from her. Get a medic neem, quickly, he snapped, and Anko left in a blur of motion, being halfway to the rooftops before Naruto had even turned back to the boy. He leaned over the boy, who now was seemingly near panic. It's okay, Yuki, the woman said as she stroked the boy's round chins. Her voice was trembling, but it held. You'll be fine, you'll be fine. Do you hear me, Yuki-kun? Naruto asked, looking straight into the boy's eyes. The boy nodded, doing his best to not give in to the panic he no doubt must feel now. You're being very brave, Naruto told him. I know it must be horrible, but you're really brave. I'm going to put this into your throat so you can breathe. Just stay calm, and when you can breathe, do it, okay? The boy nodded again, and Naruto grabbed his neck, forcing his head backwards until he was looking backwards. His throat was red and his face swollen. The swelling was bad indeed. Opening the boy's mouth, Naruto forced 2 fingers into it, holding the tongue down as he pushed the straw into the boy's throat. The boy's hand flew up and his mother quickly took it, holding it as she whispered soothing words to her child. The straw didn't easily make its way down the boy's throat, but Naruto kept pushing. It was either that or the boy's death. After what seemed like minutes, the straw started to slide down easier, and a whistling sound came from it as air made its way through the thin straw, giving the boy much needed air. Easy now, Yuki-kun, Naruto told the boy, knowing that he would want to pant deeply, something that would suck the straw into his lungs. Breathe calmly, you'll live, he kept saying to the kid as he reached into his clothes and pulled out a senbon needle, one of the non-poisoned ones, and turned to the mother. I'll sedate him, he told her, that way his body will calm down and he'll be at peace. May I? He showed her the senbon needle so that she'd understand what he was going to do. The woman nodded, currently busy taking deep breaths from the relief. Naruto nodded before he turned and showed the needle to Yuki. I'm going to put you to sleep with this needle now, okay, he said. It won't hurt, and when you wake up you'll be at the hospital and the doctors will help you. Okay, the boy seemed to understand him, but all Naruto could see in his eyes was fear. The needle must have seemed very big and intimidating to him. This way you can tell your friends that you've gotten real acupuncture, right? Naruto continued with a smile. The boy had to be calmed down. It seemed to work, and the boy eventually nodded, trying to smile despite the straw that currently was lodged in his throat. Naruto smiled back at him and slowly pushed the needle into the side of his neck, gently piercing a nerve cluster and sending the boy into a coma. First now Naruto could take a deep breath from relief as the boy became limp and unmoving. He had done it. He suffered an anaphylactic shock due to the eggs, he told the mother as they both gently helped the boy up on the bench. His body understood that something harmful had entered the body, but it couldn't find anything to react on. This made his immune system go crazy since it didn't find anything to attack, meaning it attacked his own body. That caused amongst other things the swelling. He'll be better off asleep until professional medicines get here. Oh, thank you. The mother sighed, thank you so much, I never thought that there was eggs in those dango. Her statemate made Naruto amazed at her ignorance. Her child was allergic and she hadn't even bothered to check what the food he ate contained. He kept his mouth shut though, realizing there was nothing to win on pushing the subject. Nevertheless, the fact that the woman had missed what was right in front of her and nearly caused her son's death because of it made him infuriated. How blind could people be? How? Naruto froze. Looking down at the now unconscious boy and his swollen throat, he had an epiphany that made him slack-jawed. Realization flooded him and he almost gasped. That's it, he blurted out, having suddenly figured it all out. It was so obvious. As the mother turned to look towards him, all she got to see was the slight of a swirling mass of leaves where Naruto had been. She blinked in confusion at his sudden vanishing as Naruto had already gotten halfway back to the labs. Wild-eyed, Naruto landed in front of the building and unlocked it before he dashed inside. He ran up the stairs and straight to the lab, grabbing one of the coats and a pair of gloves. As he passed by, he threw himself into his work. On the paper it all worked out, he had seen that, now he had to figure out how. Early the next Monday, a lone figure made its way through the streets of Konoha, walking towards the laboratory building. Kabuto was heading towards his workplace to be first man there, as he always was. For all Naruto's claims of planning to keep him, the boy knew that his sensei had betrayed Orochimaru, Kabuto's initial sensei, to usurp his organization. He did not want to give Naruto a reason to think he was anything other than totally loyal to the young man. As Kabuto entered the laboratory building, it was with surprise that he noticed that the door was not locked. The silver-haired boy was certain he had locked it before he had left. He had stayed for a while to clean up and his sensei had left before him. Now, however, his eyes narrowed as he realized what it had to mean. Someone was here. Pushing his glasses into position, Kabuto entered the building, deciding to try to engage the intruder. If someone destroyed any of what they were working on here, Sensei would be furious. He could see light coming from the second floor, in the lab. After a few seconds he decided to investigate and walked inside. Everything on the first floor was untouched, no signs of intrusion. He knew he had turned off the lights and locked the door though. As Kabuto silently hurried up the stairs, he could hear one of the machines in the lab being turned on. Who broke into a lab to start the machines? Kabuto pulled out a kunai and sneaked over to the open lab door to glance inside. What he saw in there surprised him. Inside the room, none other than Sensei himself was standing. The man was leaning against one of the computers with his hands supporting him against the sides of the screen as he stared at it. Unlike usually, his hair was not pulled up and he seemed almost hunched over as he stood in front of the machine where rows of text were rapidly passing by. Kabuto hadn't expected this. How long had Sensei been here? Pocketing the kunai, Kabuto headed inside to greet him. Sensei, he asked tentatively, only to be greeted with Naruto glaring backwards at him. With the hair down and his snake eyes almost shining, Kabuto's heart skipped a beat as he saw a near-total copy of Orochimaru in his sensei's face. The hair hung down on the sides of his face where the eyes were glowing with an almost maniacal light. His teeth were ever so slightly bared and Kabuto could see even here that they were clenched. "Oh," Naruto muttered, "it's you." This was all he said before he turned back to the screen to stare at it. The constant flow of text didn't seem like it was about to relent anytime soon. "Did you discover something, Sensei?" Kabuto asked carefully. He didn't want to disturb Naruto, the man must have stayed here all night. His eyes were the best indication, they were bleary and seemingly unfocused, the eyes of someone near snapping. Kabuto knew that he'd probably be very irritable right now. The bacteria, Naruto said atonally, his eyes not leaving the screen, it's not like an antibody, it is an antibody. It works not similarly, it works identically. That means that even if we can't fight it, we can fight the carriers. An anaphylactic shock would make it start poisoning them. I'm seeing if the idea works in practice. Kabuto found himself unable to say anything when Naruto was done talking. Such a concept, it was a wild guess at best. Something made Kabuto wonder if his sensei had snapped. Having spent the entire night, or even the entire weekend, working like this was the deeds of an unbalanced person, not the calm man he knew his sensei as. The sounds that then came from Naruto only further aggravated Kabuto's guesses. His sensei laughed. That alone was something strange and unheard of, but the laughter that came from Naruto was outright unbalanced. Ehehehehe. Naruto chuckled, his head downcast as the texts had stopped rolling on the screen. His hands were clutching the screen with enough force to make his knuckles go white. He ha 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 ha. Naruto stood up, throwing his hands out to the side and looking towards the ceiling. I did it, he yelled, making Kabuto step back in shock and fright. Do you see me now, you old fool? I did it, I outsmarted your creations. There's nothing you have created that I won't figure out. In manic joy, Naruto was laughing wildly, a tint of seeming madness in his laugh. So? Kabuto said, shall I report to Hokage-sama sensei? Naruto's head snapped to the side now, seemingly having forgotten Kabuto's presence there for a while. An unsettling smile spread over his lips as he looked at his assistant. Oh no, he said, not quite yet, I'm not going off half-cocked here, first we're going to. It was then that Naruto stumbled, losing his footing and stumbling to the side. He eventually collided with a locker, making a bang echo through the room as his hand flew up to his head. Sensei! Kabuto was at his side in a second, reaching out to support him. As he landed his hand on Naruto's shoulder, he realized that Naruto was trembling. You were here all night, right? Kabuto asked, Naruto nodding. I came across a child who suffered an allergic reaction to eggs. Naruto said, groaning as he rubbed his eyes. His voice was back to normal now, sounding only exhausted. I got the idea to try an anaphylactic shock from that and headed back to the labs at once. Been working non-stop since then. Naruto waved away Kabuto and rose to his feet. What was I doing, he continued, having been snapped out of his exhaustion-induced insanity. You were. Kabuto began. It was a rhetorical question. Naruto said as he shook his head, mumbling tiredly, report to Hokage-sama, start looking for ways we can apply the data and be snappy about it. I'm taking the day off. Got it? Naruto drawled, looking at Kabuto with an exhausted face. Kabuto nodded, smiling respectfully at his sensei. Shall I keep hinting about the fun, sensei? Kabuto asked, getting a nod from Naruto. You know what to do. Naruto said, walking over to the window and opening it before he disappeared in a swirl of leaves that was sucked out through the window. Kabuto went over to the computer, leaning in to start reading the final analysis the computer had spat out. His eyes danced over the figures and the data, taking it all in and processing it. Sensei was right, the idea worked. Kabuto's face twisted into a smirk, realizing how the counteragent would work. How terrible. He thought to himself. And Sensei believes we can start synthesizing a counteragent against the necrobacteria within 48 hours. Kabuto finished his report, standing at attention in front of the Hokage. The man was impressed, one could see that on him. You sure don't let the grass grow under your feet, he said, didn't the labs open for the week only 30 minutes ago? Minato glanced at the clock. Kabuto almost grinned at this, the man made it too easy. Well. Kabuto said, yes, he said, grinning uncomfortably, we always strive to be effective. With a balanced and well-estimated dose of seemingly uncertainty, he opened the door, inviting Minato to bite. The man's eyes narrowed immediately now, and Kabuto could see that the man had swallowed it. He internally thanked both Orochimaru and Naruto for having done all they could to present him to the world as a naive and awkward nerd. That was the only thing that stopped Minato from realizing how he was duped. "Is there something I should know?" Minato asked, making Kabuto raise his hands in a defensive gesture. "Nothing at all, Hokage-sama," Kabuto hurriedly said. "We checked it very well, the counteragent will work as intended." "I meant about how you got the results so quickly." Minato interrupted him. "Speak up, that's an order." There was a hint of steel in Minato's voice, something Kabuto respected. The man didn't leave hints of suspicious or unknown factors alone, not even when his son was involved. Pretending to flinch, Kabuto got an uncertain look on his face. "Well." He wet his lips, making a show of how anxious he was. "Hokage-sama, this project was severely hamstrung from the beginning by our crippling lack of funding, and our progress was a slow crawl at best. Sensei didn't want to make a fuss about it though. However, when we left the lab last Friday we overheard some of the villagers." Kabuto straightened himself up, feigning a look of anger on his face. "They were whispering that the bacterium probably was Orochimaru's creation, and that it wasn't strange that the snake's apprentice wouldn't want to reveal his master's secrets." His lips formed into a thin line as he noticed how Minato's eyes widened. "Forgive me my audacity, Hokage-sama," Kabuto said, being proud of the fact that he could make his voice tremble with seeming anger. "But Sensei has worked tirelessly to uncover the secrets of this bacteria. The suspicions that it might be Orochimaru's creation only spurred him further. Those people had no right to say that, and even if Sensei didn't show any reactions, he was badly hurt by the remark. He went back to the lab and worked non-stop all weekend to figure it out. He didn't even sleep and was near collapse when I got there this morning. He didn't want me to say anything, but I have to speak up. He's running himself ragged, with minimal funding and personnel, to uncover the secrets people expect him to lie about. It's not fair." The naive exclamation gave it all a perfect finish, and Kabuto seemed to tremble where he stood. He knew that he had taken a chance. Yelling at the Hokage could very well be seen as insubordination. Yet the man didn't seem like he was planning to have Kabuto thrown into jail. Indeed, he seemed more interested to keep his trembling hands under control. The Hokage could hide most of it. To some it would just seem as if he was thoughtful, but Kabuto could see it. The Yondaime Hokage of Konoha was devastated by what Kabuto said. Not only was his son ostracized, he was becoming more and more seen as Orochimaru's successor. How it must hurt for the man to hear this about his son. I'm sorry, Hokage-sama," Kabuto said now. "I was out of line." Minato only raised one hand, however, motioning for Kabuto to be quiet. The boy obliged, and the Hokage sighed. "It does you honor that you speak up," Minato said, his voice seemingly calm, but Kabuto knew what to look for. The man was horrified by the story Kabuto had painted for him. Dismissed." Kabuto gave the Hokage a sharp salute and left the office. Naruto had crashed into bed the first thing he did when he got home, the exhaustion making him trembling and powerless. Only getting home had been a chore. He could have started himself awake with acupuncture, but he needed to sleep. The acupuncture wouldn't do anything with his exhausted mind, only his body. When he finally had gotten up the long flight of stairs and through the damn door, he hadn't even bothered to get undressed, only collapsed on the bed with the fervent wish to sleep in his head. How had he managed to stay focused the entire weekend? The bliss of sleep overtook him swiftly, his body and mind joyfully accepting the sleep. He could feel how he, in only seconds, drifted away into the land of dreams. Onaisen. Something slammed into Naruto's gut, knocking the air out of him and sending a shockwave through his body. His body became paralyzed by the blow, but the adrenaline in him made him move still. His body was stiff, but he could still move. With a surge he pushed the attacker off him, and in wild shock he lunged for the opponent's body. He did get hold of something, and twisting around, he slammed the body against where his body knew where the window was. Naruto's heart was pounding as he dangled the intruder out of the open window, his teeth bared and his eyes wide in shock and fright. His fist was clenching the intruder's clothes, and he panted, at first not being able to identify who it was due to the startling attack. Fear had made the adrenaline pound in his ears. After a while he managed to calm down enough that he could see clearly. The intruder was being dangled out of the open window, the face staring at him in shock. Said face, however, belonged to Kimiko. Naruto ended up staring in disbelief at his sister, his eyes wide as he slowly took in who it was. The girl was staring at him as he clutched her shirt at the chest area, holding her straight outwards. Only a few seconds later Naruto had pulled his hand in and unceremoniously dumped Kimiko on the floor. "You asinine little brat," he exclaimed, speaking from his heart as he saw Kimiko cough on the floor. Kneeling, he put a hand on her back and patted it to stimulate her breathing again. "What were you thinking of, jumping me like that?" Kimiko croaked as she massaged her chest where he had clenched her shirt. "I was saying hello." She looked at him with a face that was actually angry now, her brow furrowed. "I didn't expect you to be waving me around like a string of ramen." "I was asleep," Naruto yelled, still shocked and having the adrenaline working overtime. "Don't you learn to not jump sleeping people at the academy anymore?" "Sleeping at this time?" Kimiko asked, her face suspicious now. I know what it is. It's that scary snake lady, she's making you get bad habits. You were out drinking and skipped work." She pointed an accusing finger at Naruto, her entire face a visage of righteous accusation. Naruto gaped now, staring at Kimiko with his mouth wide open, gaping like a fish. He couldn't believe his ears. Was this hyperactive little gnat seriously accusing him of neglecting his responsibilities? This brat! This tiny little ramen broth guzzler dared accuse him of skipping work like he was a lazy academy student. "I did not," he yelled before he stopped, a teasing little part in the back of his mind getting a distinctly Anko-like grin as it sing-songed that yes, technically he had skipped work. Today was Monday, he was meant to work. Even though nobody would fault him, that didn't change that yes, he had skipped work. Or I mean... Naruto started to flounder, not knowing what to say. He didn't lie unless it was a matter of missions, and technically Kimiko was right. That meant that he had been outsmarted by this microscopic twit. "That's it, isn't it?" Kimiko yelled, Naruto gaping in front of her. "She's corrupting you. She's corrupting my big brother." Whack! The ridge of Naruto's hand hit Kimiko's head as Naruto stopped Kimiko in her tracks. "Will you shut up?" Naruto sighed. Also, he took a quick peek at the clock. "Aren't you the one skipping out on things?" he pointed out when seeing that it was only 1 in the afternoon. Kimiko froze here, making Naruto grit his teeth as he grabbed Kimiko by her pigtails. Ignoring her yells of protest, he bent low, actually kneeling so he'd be face to face with her. "Listen here Namikaze Kimiko, and listen well," he told her, his eyes drilling holes in her face. "Not only are you only mid-ranking in your class, you are even refusing to take what chances you have to actually improve, and instead you're truanting, coming over here to bug me. You are 6 months from graduation, when you will be thrown into active service, expected to fight and kill. Do you seriously think you've got the time to muck around? Well, why don't you teach me a jutsu then?" Kimiko fired back, her eyes narrowed into that fox-like, petulant look. "What?" Naruto asked, having been thrown totally out of the loop by Kimiko. He blinked as he looked at her now. "All that stuff they teach at the academy is boring," Kimiko said, untangling herself from Naruto's hands. "You know all kinds of cool jutsu, teach me one." That was it. Kimiko's irreverent attitude and Naruto's grouchiness both reached their peaks in that moment. Naruto's eyes turned serpentine and he let go of her pigtails. Biting himself in the thumb, he proceeded to make a series of lightning-fast seals, too fast for anyone but the ones possessing the Sharingan to follow, and slammed his palms into the floor. A series of seals spread over the floor and made a giant poof of smoke erupt in the room, covering everything for a second. Kimiko threw her hands up to cover her face, but when the smoke quickly cleared she opened one eye to look. However, both her eyes went wide as she saw what was in front of her. A huge snake, easily 30 feet long and with a body as thick as 2 feet at its widest, with purple scales and a triangle-shaped head. Said snake looked at her and hissed, its giant mouth opening wide. Jaya! Kimiko screamed before the snake lunged. A few seconds later the snake was lying on Naruto's floor, content and with its belly swollen to epic proportions. Said belly twitched every now and then, as if something was moving inside. There! Naruto snarled as he stomped into the kitchen to make a strong cup of coffee, a cool jutsu. A few minutes later Naruto was sitting by the kitchen table, a large mug of strong coffee in his hand. He had dismissed the snake after only a few seconds, making the animal vanish and a mucus-covered Kimiko land wildly flailing on the floor. Booting her into the shower, he had told her to clean up and get out into the kitchen when she was done. Standing on the other side of the table, a steaming hot cup of ramen was currently standing. Naruto figured giving her something to fill her mouth with was the best way to stop her from using it against him. Also, he did admit to himself, even if he'd never tell her, that he had overreacted. Feeding Kimiko to a snake was such an overreaction that it wasn't even funny, and he felt embarrassed over himself. Had he really become this unbalanced by the stress lately? Kimiko came out of the bathroom now, wearing one of his towels wrapped around her body. She peeked into the kitchen, her face appearing from the doorway, suspiciously peeking at him. She wasn't going to enter of her own free will. Naruto calmly gestured towards the ramen cup however, and within seconds the situation was solved. Kimiko almost instant moved onto the chair and opened the ramen pack with blinding speed. "So what do you say?" Naruto asked as he looked at his sister slurping down the ramen with a blissful look on her face. Kimiko paused for the faintest of moments before she sucked the ramen dangling from her mouth into it and grinned. "You're forgiven, Onisen," she said, making Naruto actually have to fight a small smile. Where was that wit during her studies? Anyhow, Kimiko, he started now, deciding that he had to address this issue of hers. "Do you know how many risks you take every time you use a jutsu? How many things that can go wrong?" "Ha!" Kimiko actually stopped now, the magic word of jutsu having grabbed her attention. One I guess," she asked, making Naruto sigh. "And that is?" he asked patiently. "Chakra depletion," Kimiko explained, "you run out of chakra and die." "But that's not a problem for me," she continued with a grin, "I never run out." "Did you know there are actually 5 things that can happen?" Naruto asked, seeing Kimiko furrow her brow and shake her head. He continued. "First there's the one you know, depletion, that you run out of it, as said that is something that can kill you. Then there's feedback, that when you release the chakra back into your body the pulse becomes too powerful, overloading the body and can cause any degree of damage, from light to fatal. There's overload, that you mold too much chakra, ending up with a massive amount of chakra you can't use, and that eventually slips out of your grip, something 10 times more powerful than feedback at best. There's something called arrhythmia, that the chakra flow in your body becomes irregular and you can't sync with it, meaning you will be unable to use chakra, sometimes forever. Finally there's explosive decompression, you try to store it for too long in specific tenketsu, chakra focal points, and it ends up blasting the tenketsu to pieces, meaning you will become unable to channel chakra to that place." His dramatic descriptions of the dangers of chakra use had obviously caught Kimiko's attention. She was staring at him with wide open eyes, even having stopped to eat ramen. "Why didn't they ever tell us that?" Kimiko blurted out now, staring in shock at her brother. It obviously rattled her. The girl had grown up in a family of such legends and had ever even heard about that. "Because it's not in risk for any of you," Naruto said. "In the end, it's chakra, life force. Do you think it'll be that dangerous?" "Of course it isn't, it's perfectly safe the vast majority of times, and when you do end up with something like this it's usually because you went way over your actual skill level, like for example an academy student wanting to try high-level jutsu," he added dryly, and Kimiko flinched. "Also, each of the jutsu you're taught there are picked in equal measures for their ease of use, their versatility and their usefulness in preparing you for using other jutsu. Bunshin teaches you to project chakra from your tenketsu, all of them. Kawamiri teaches you to make it flow in certain directions, and Hench teaches you how to alter chakra's very nature. Naruto described this with motions of his hands, informing his sister on how it worked. Of course he knew this. Orochimaru had had him find this out by himself when he was much younger than Kimiko was now. Really? Kimiko asked, her face getting a suspicious look on it. You're not just making this up so I will go back to study boring things? Am I a liar, Kimiko? Naruto asked softly, making the girl flinch. I am a scientist, he said. This kind of knowledge is what I eat, breathe and drink. Konoha wants its shinobi to be strong, but the risks involved in training little children are immense. Their chakra system isn't fully ready, they are mentally unprepared. If you rush things, the results will be catastrophic. If all it took was a devoted teacher and a great student to be that good, do you seriously think the academy would waste time on those things you learn? Well, Kimiko said, not knowing what to say. Kimiko, Naruto said again, actually smiling now, thinking that you can just waltz into the academy and already know 15 jutsu, be about mid-chunin level in close combat blah blah blah. Those things are the foolish fantasies of deluded morons without any concept of how this world works. Progress is sometimes made by one giant leap, I'll admit that, but it's the constant and steady working, year out and year in, that pays off. Believe me, I know that, he added with a smirk as he took a deep sip of his coffee. Yeah, hey, wait a second. Kimiko protested now after having looked at Naruto with almost a reverent look on her face. You became a jonin when you were my age. Naruto nodded. I did, he said. You want to know why? His blatant admission made Kimiko lose some momentum and the girl nodded, slurping up the last of her ramen. Because when the Kyuubi came, I became obsessed. Naruto bluntly stated the only name besides Anko that he knew Kimiko feared. She knew what was inside her, knew what she was. She also knew that one day she would have to call upon it and that there were others like her. How do you mean? Kimiko asked, making Naruto continue. I cannot describe it, but a fire lit inside me. A terrible thing that whipped me to action. I couldn't resist, I had to do as it told me. That's why I went to the library and didn't come out of there for months. You could say I went crazy, but that makes it sound worse than it was. Still, I got such a drive, such desperation, to understand what had happened, how it worked, why you lay there with that seal on you. I hope you never have to experience something like that, Kimiko. You can't stop and it drives you on, no matter if you're hungry or tired. You work until you drop and resume first thing when you wake up. But how does this work with your skills? Kimiko said. Because I was lucky, or unlucky, enough that Orochimaru noticed me, Naruto said. He took that obsession and shaped it, turned it onto more creative pursuits. He told me that he'd teach me all I needed, but I needed to become a master of many things first. After a while, it wasn't just about understanding anymore, it was about advancing. It became my life goal, to become better, to reach a bit further, to climb that next mountain and see what was beyond. Yeah, and you got taught jutsu. Kimiko returned to her favorite subject. I wasn't taught advanced jutsu at the age of 6, Naruto told his sister. I learned theory, physical training, sciences. It was first when it became a jonin that he really taught me high-level jutsu like the things you want to learn, and that was after 6 years of ceaseless working. No weekends, no free afternoons, nothing except constant work. I knew a few things before that, true, but you'd know them too, if you kept up in your studies, pushed yourself all the way every day. If you do that, then in the end you'd find one more secret, one more technique, be it that the teachers decide to give you something small, perhaps that someone teaches you something, even that you come up with it yourself. There are ways to learn those things you want to know. If you truly devote yourself, he said, punctuating each of the 5 last words by pounding his index finger into the table. Kimiko sat silent now. The girl had her eyes downcast and looked into the table. A solemn look was etched on her face, and it was easy to see that something had gotten her down. In the end, a small sniff made its way across the table and Naruto blinked. Soon tears were starting to make their way down Kimiko's cheeks. She was crying. But how? She asked. I'm not lazy. I'm not, she sobbed, but I just don't get it, I can't even do a bunshin. Everyone else gets it like nothing, but I'm still only making blurred shapes. I just don't get it. Naruto almost groaned now. He couldn't handle situations like this. What was he meant to do now? Hug her? Say something smart? He thought furiously and in the end remembered something he had learned. Reaching forwards across the table, Naruto put a hand on the sobbing Kimiko's head and softly ruffled her hair. Old and well-known rituals in between people were always comforting, and he guessed that this was the best he had for Kimiko. Kimiko, he said softly, thinking back on a case study he had done along with several medic-nins a while ago. Did you know that there's a genin in Konoha who can't even use chakra? Kimiko looked up at her brother through tear-stained eyes now, surprise evident on her face. He was born with severe chakra arrhythmia, one so severe that it would never flow smoothly. It was impossible, utterly impossible, for him to use any ninjutsu or genjutsu at all. But now, he's a genin. I worked together with Tsunade-sama and managed, only just, to give him a small pool of chakra to use. Not much, he'll never be able to use anything more than the Academy 3, but he didn't let that stop him. He worked hard, refused to quit, and eventually, by focusing on what he could do, he passed. What he lacked in chakra usage he made up for in sheer willpower and taijutsu. He's apprenticed to one of Konoha's top 3 in taijutsu and part of what will become a dedicated assault team. And if some nobody who barely has neither chakra nor control could do that, you most definitely can. Really? Kimiko whispered, wiping her nose on her sleeve. Naruto nodded. If you work hard enough, he said, train until your hands bleed, study until your eyes hurt, think until your mind hurts. There's a law in science. For each action, there must be an equal and opposite reaction. Naruto stopped and noticed that Kimiko's face was a mask of pure, I don't get it, and he shifted tracks, basically, no pain, no gain, he translated, and now Kimiko understood. Do you have extracurricular classes? Naruto asked now, making Kimiko nod. Then sign up for help with the chakra control, sign up and go, every day. Even if it's boring, you're tired or whatever. Go, and you'll do it. Every day. Kimiko looked at Naruto with an apprehensive look on her face. Naruto nodded. It will be tough, he said, thinking back on how a normal day had meant 16 hours of work for him, and here Kimiko was apprehensive about stepping up from 7 to 9 hours. But you'll learn how to do it, he continued, also 6 months of 2 extra hours per day beats repeating a year, doesn't it? I guess. Kimiko said, apparently not looking forwards to it. So what about I teach you a jutsu when you pass? Naruto asked, making Kimiko's eyes open wide. She looked at Naruto with stars in her eyes and wide open mouth. Really? She squealed, looking at Naruto as if he had just promised her all the ramen she could ever eat. Naruto nodded. Exclamation point. Kimiko squealed as she tackled him, flying over the table and landing on him with her arms wrapping themselves around him. Naruto buffeted as he was thrown to the floor, only just managing to make sure he landed without hitting his head. Kimiko was now attached to his chest like a tumor, squealing into his chest in wild joy. Get off me! Naruto groaned, doing his best to push his little sister, now acting much like an overly affectionate monkey, off him. It took the better part of a minute to do this since Kimiko was strong when she wanted. What kind of jutsu will it be? Kimiko asked, something like how to breathe fire? What about a summoning jutsu? No! Shunshin. You'll see, Naruto said as he got up from the floor. But if you want it, you must go every day, he told her, no skipping, no slacking. Got it? Kimiko eagerly nodded and Naruto smiled. Any slightest hint of uncertainty was gone and she was 100% devoted to the idea now. Good, he said, then it's a promise. Kimiko grinned at him before his stomach suddenly growled, loudly. Naruto's sweat dropped as he could almost feel the rumbling in the air. Kimiko's grin turned embarrassed now. I'll go make some more ramen, she said, zipping over to the cupboard to fish out another cup. Naruto swore to himself that he had to check that girl's metabolism someday. She was only 130 centimeters tall, a midget even for her age, flat as a board and scrawny as well. How could she scarf down that much ramen and still want more? Where did it all go? All right everybody. Iruka yelled, getting the class attention. That was it for today. Make sure to read up on hypothermia until next week, there will be a test, he finished with a roar as the students had started to leave already. This provoked a series of groans from them as they had expected a lazy weekend. Iruka shook his head as the students left, thinking that they seemed to get lazier every year. However, as he gathered his notes, he saw something that surprised him. One of his students had stayed behind and was currently standing in front of his desk. Said student was the one that used to vacate the room as soon as possible, usually, Namikaze Kimiko, the Hellion daughter of the Hokage. The girl was standing in front of him with her eyes flicking back and forth and an uncertain look on her face. Did you need anything, Namikaze-san? He asked her, one eyebrow raised at her. To see Namikaze Kimiko of all people stay behind after class ended was something he'd never have expected to see. The girl glanced at him for a second before she looked away again, a blush starting to spread over her cheeks. A blush on Namikaze Kimiko's cheeks. Iruka had seen that look before, a lot of times. In fact, he knew that embarrassed look well enough to precisely know what it was. Last time he had seen it was when that bun-haired girl who graduated last year had confessed to his colleague Mizuki. Was she? Iruka found himself frozen, a lump forming in his gut as he stared at his student. By the gods, what was he going to do? What had he deserved to have this happening to him? Wasn't he the man who berated her on a daily basis? Wasn't she meant to hate him? Suddenly, as if to spite him, images popped into Iruka's head, images Mizuki had shown him on several occasions. BDSM images. No! He was not allowed to think of his student being submissive in a bondage outfit. By Kami-sama, hadn't he matured even beyond that? And Hokage-sama. Hokage-sama would slaughter him if he found out. Iruka could only imagine what the usually soft-spoken and smiling Hokage would do if he found out one of the teachers was drooling over his little princess. He had to deal with this somehow. He was an adult and a teacher, he had to find a way to deal with this. Namikaze-san, he asked again, and Kimiko seemed to almost twitch a little. Not good, not good. What was he going to do? Turn her down? It was the only option. Of course it was. What else was he going to do? Turn her down kindly but firmly, tell her that even though she was pretty he could not violate his duties. That was the only option. Kimiko mumbled something now which Iruka couldn't hear beyond I, and he felt like his legs were shaking. The girl stared into the floor, seemingly too embarrassed to even look at him. Excuse me? He asked, dreading what would come now. I want to take extra classes. Kimiko yelled now, her shout making Iruka's heart leap into his throat with fright. The girl's teeth were clenched now, as were her hands, and she has an almost angry look on her face. Ha! Iruka asked, staring dumbly at his student. What? Oh yeah. Extra classes? Of course, he stuttered as he tried to regain his composure. Extra classes, of course, what the hell had he been thinking? How arrogant could he get? Of course, she wasn't going to confess to him. Iruka felt a wave of contempt boil up in himself as a row of tiny chibi Mizukis danced around his head singing, Hentai, hentai, you're one of us. Okay, he said now, trying to ignore the rows of silver-haired perverts doing rings around his head. Was there anything special you thought about? Chakra control, Kimiko mumbled, having folded her arms in front of her tightly. She looked almost as if she was forced to do this. Iruka smiled now. It was almost a conditioned reflex to him, whenever his students made a good choice he always smiled. Is that so? He asked with a positive voice. That's a good idea, Namikaze-san, he said encouragingly. Digging through his papers, he got out a small sheet which he handed to her. Fill this one out and give me it tomorrow, okay? he said as he handed her the sheet. You'll need a parent's signature as well, he said as Kimiko looked at the sheet with a suspicious look on her face. After about half a second, she looked up at him and grinned though. Sure sensei, see ya tomorrow. With that, the girl left the room at her usual pace, top speed. Iruka was left looking after her with a smile on his lips. After about 2 seconds of being alone in the classroom, however, Iruka groaned and slapped his hand over his face. What had he been thinking? The scarred teacher gritted his teeth as he turned around and begun to pound his head into the blackboard. His hitayate clacked against the blackboard as he kept up the pounding, feeling like a total idiot and a pervert at the same time. He was so disgusted with himself that he couldn't believe it. Am I interrupting something? A dispassionate voice said from the window, making Iruka freeze. The Chunin quickly turned to look towards the window, and a cold hand gripped his heart when he saw the speaker. Sitting in an open window, a window that had been closed and could not be opened from the outside, with his legs crossed and his body leaning slightly forwards, was Namikaze Naruto. The older brother of Kimiko, the Hokage's firstborn and, most notably, the apprentice of the late Sannin Orochimaru, the Sannin who had died at said apprentice's hands. Balancing effortlessly on the windowsill, the young man's arms were resting on one knee, one straight across it and the other supporting his cheek with the elbow supporting that arm on the other arm. His pale face, more reminiscent in shape to his former master than his father, was impassive and his eyes, pale blue and slitted like a serpent's, were fixed on Iruka. The pale blonde hair was as always fixed in a ponytail except for the few bangs hanging down on the sides of his face, framing him in a sickly pale yellow aura. This, along with the exotic garments he wore, loose-fitting and pale, made him easy to identify indeed. Iruka felt how he grew cold. This young man, 3 years Iruka's junior, was one of the deadliest men in the village, rivaled only by his father and Uchiha Itachi, the head of the Anbu. He had proven himself this by killing Orochimaru, the man who had once contended with the Yandere for the seat of Hokage, when the man had been revealed as a traitor. Without the least hesitation, the man had revealed Orochimaru's treason to the village and, on order from the Hokage, killed his master, the very man that the Hokage had put him with. Iruka couldn't stand Kimiko's older brother. He didn't hate him though, instead he feared him. The cold-eyed man was in many aspects an almost perfect copy of his master, seemingly even more ruthless and manipulative at times. What more, where Orochimaru had a sense of humor and a playful attitude that could calm people, Naruto only showed coldness, or anger. His eyes were like those of a viper waiting to strike, and Iruka always felt like a small mouse when he looked at the man. Well? The man asked again, starting Iruka. No, not at all. Iruka said hurriedly now, swallowing as he looked at the man. What can I help you with, Namikaze-san? Kimiko. Naruto stated, getting down from the windowsill. She'll be attending extra classes from now on. Being that you're her teacher, you'll be the one who teaches those classes. Yes, the Chunin asked. There was one of the things that freaked him out with this man somehow, the way he always set the field before a discussion, lining up facts in that dispassionate manner. It was creepy somehow. Her attendance record, Naruto said now, looking up at Iruka from where he was standing, now leaning against the windowsill. When the year is over, I want a copy of it. Pardon me, Iruka said now, but why? He couldn't see why this man, a man who was well known to have nothing to do with his family, would take an interest in that. A smile spread over Naruto's face now. It's a carrot on a stick scenario, Umino-sensei, Naruto said. I can't make any precise quantifications, but Kimiko's levels of chakra are easily 20 times as great as anyone else in her class. It follows logically that she should have vastly greater problems with controlling that chakra. Yes, Iruka said, that is why I was so pleasantly surprised when she asked for extra classes. I know that has been a problem for her. It's more than a problem, Naruto said, it's a potentially debilitating issue of hers. By offering a gift and keeping an eye on her attendance, I've created something that can act as previously mentioned carrot for her, making her keep going where she'd normally quit. It's not a perfect solution, but it is the best available. I guess I must thank you then, Namikaze-san, Iruka said. It makes me happy to hear you taking an interest in this. I am sure Kimiko-san's growth will benefit from this. does it? Naruto asked now, making Iruka pause. The young snake shinobi looked at Iruka with a piercing gaze now. I'll be frank with you, Umino-sensei, he said, I know of your history, what you lost to the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Iruka stiffened now, memories welling up inside him as he threw about that dreadful night, the night he had lost his family to the Kyuubi no Kitsune's ravages, and I wonder, Naruto continued heavily, can you honestly claim that you feel no antipathy against its carrier? When seeing the being that hold your family's murderer inside it live happily, surrounded by a loving family, when you lost all to the thing it holds. Do you truly feel nothing? Iruka stood transfixed by Naruto's glare. Now more than ever he felt like a watched mouse in front of a serpent. It felt as if he said anything negative or dared to sound the least fake, Naruto would strike him down. Here he stood. It was not killing intent or anything like that, it was sheer force of will. The snake-like young man had Iruka transfixed, even without even implicit threats of violence. Iruka dared not speak falsely. He begun, swallowing both to clear his throat and try to force down the lump in it. I hate the Kyuubi, he said, I despise it from the bottom of my heart. Now he looked up, meeting Naruto's glare. But Kimiko-san isn't the Kyuubi, he said, putting all his strength into the words, she is Namikaze Kimiko. A constantly enthusiastic, sometimes dim, always friendly and ever passionate little girl. She's one of my students, and I will do. Enough, Naruto said now, having raised one hand to cut Iruka off. I believe you, he continued with a wry smile, if you were insincere you would not have told me of your hatred for the Kyuubi. Your answer is more than adequate, forgive me for my rudeness. There was something about Naruto's tone that seemed almost mocking to Iruka. It's all right, Iruka said with a forced smile as an errant bead of sweat made its way down Iruka's face. It's not strange for an older brother to look out for his sister after all. Iruka realized the very second he had said that how stupid it sounded. Talk about token excuse, Naruto wasn't a man to do these things usually. Indeed, wasn't he ostracized from his family? Naruto's eyes drilled into Iruka for a second now, a flash of irritation going across them. Anyway, Iruka continued quickly now, attempting to cover up his faux pas. I don't see any reason to not let you know, especially not if you're the reason she's taking them. Shall I send you a copy when she graduates? Weekly updates if possible, Naruto said, his voice inferring that it wasn't really a suggestion. Also, don't tell Kimiko, I want to see if she does it without knowledge of my surveillance. I'll avoid telling her, Iruka promised and Naruto nodded. Good, he said, I'll be waiting for your reports then, Umino-sensei. With that, Naruto dropped backwards, out of the window. Iruka gasped as the sight of Naruto falling backwards, throwing himself against the window. He wasn't teacher for nothing and could see that falling like that was a non-recoverable drop. By Kami-sama, what was he doing? When Iruka got to the window, however, he looked down only to see nothing where Naruto should be on the ground. There was nothing there, not even the telltrace signs of a shunshin having been used or the vanishing smoke of a Kage Bunshin. He had vanished into nowhere. Iruka found his legs trembling. S-class shinobi, they were always terrifying, one way or another. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you enjoyed this what if and want to see next part of it, comment down below and let me know. Also share this video with your friends. See you in the next video. Peace.